So first of all, there's some really needed context for what the heck's going on with ChatGPT. In other words, you need to know who made the tool and what the deal is with them. So I want to share that with you. First of all, the best way to understand what's happening in generative AI is AI that creates things, writes things, creates images, creates audio and video. Generative, it generates, right? Other types of AI like facial recognition, things that can identify, tumors in a CT scan, those are not generative. They're just artificial intelligence that can recognize things or be used to do things. Generative AI is a creative tool, and that's what ChatGPT is. And ChatGPT is essentially a Microsoft product. And it stands in direct competition with Google. So what you're seeing right now is there's a giant war between Microsoft and Google, and ChatGPT is the battleground. So let me explain. In November of last year, 1 year ago, ChatGPT was introduced to the world. It's ChatGPT 3.5. It took the world by storm. More than 100 million users in 2 months, the fastest tech adoption in history before Threads. And then, and just to put that in context, it took 9 months for TikTok to get to 100 million users. So they did in 2 months what the fastest record had been was TikTok in 9 months. It was wildfire. And the company that made ChatGPT is called OpenAI, and you can see that in the URL. Well, who is OpenAI? OpenAI was started years ago. One of the co-founders was Elon Musk, and it is a research nonprofit for responsible use of AI. And eventually Elon Musk got fed up with them, and he sold his shares, and guess who he sold them to? Microsoft. So Microsoft bought Elon's shares, and then it started investing a ton of money into OpenAI so that they could accelerate the development of ChatGPT, a total of $13 billion. Now, you have to understand, 2019 is when ChatGPT 3.5, the 3 series started emerging. So they knew back in 2019, years before it was released, holy cow, this is amazing. And oh my God, what if we integrated ChatGPT with Word or Outlook or Excel? Holy God, this is amazing. So I'll give you $13 billion. I'll give you privileged access to our cloud services in exchange for not giving this to Google. Let us have it. And the irony is some of the founders of OpenAI are former Google people. And the technology that ChatGPT is built on, the transformer technology, the T is transformer. Guess who developed? I'll give you one guess who developed the transformer technology. Google. So the great irony in all of this is Google essentially created the most serious competitor in their history. This is their biggest competitor since Alta Vista in the back days of search. Well, Google was actually ahead for years on large language models and AI training. And so they were completely caught flat-footed. Honestly, nobody knew in November that this was old news in the AI community. It's just it hadn't come to a broad audience yet. Nobody really knew this was going to take off, not even OpenAI. It ended up being the most successful launch in tech history. And Google was like, oh, damn, what are we going to do? So in March of 2023, 5 months later, they release Bard, which is a competitor to ChatGPT. It's essentially a chat bot that's generative AI, but uses a different model. And they started with something called Lambda, and now they use Palm. But the bottom line is, so what ChatGPT uses GPT 4.0 and 3.5. Bard uses Palm, P-A-L-M. And that's like the language model that drives it. That's the technology underneath it. Bard was developed by DeepMind. DeepMind is the OpenAI competitor that Google bought back in 2014. So Microsoft invested a bunch of money in OpenAI. Google bought DeepMind almost a decade ago. So that's the layout, right? ChatGPT versus Bard, OpenAI versus DeepMind, Microsoft versus Google. The very next day, After they announce Bard, Microsoft announces AI-powered search. So integrating ChatGPT into Bing. Now, everybody knows Google search is the dominant player, more than 90% of searches globally. Bing is their lame competitor that nobody uses. So Bing AI is introduced the next day to steal the thunder from Google. It was a total, they were waiting for Google to make an announcement, and the very next day they leave a bombshell. Now, why is this a bombshell? Because an AI augmented search engine puts the foundations of Google's business, which is ads that accompany search results, at risk. Because the only way you pay for an ad is PPC, pay per click. If you don't click on the ad, Google makes no money. So if AI gives you the answer, you don't need to click. This is very disruptive, not only to Google's business model, but to media organizations. And one of, I have a media background. I'm going to definitely be talking to you about all the crazy fears from the New York Times and all the media organizations that they're not going to get traffic anymore to their websites because generative AI will just give you the answer of what's going on in the world. If you go to Bing AI right now and ask them about what's going on in Israel with Hamas, it will tell you, and you don't have to go to the AP or the Washington Post or the New York Times to get that news, or CNN. It's in there, and that's a problem. Like, they're not paying AP. AP has, Associated Press has reporters who are sending information that is copyrighted, and then these search engines are just grabbing that and then presenting it to you and not giving the traffic back to that website. So the Associated Press closed the deal to license that material, and ChatGPT pays them for it. OpenAI pays them for it. But all the other media organizations have not closed the deal like that, and they're getting ready to sue or close a deal or both, right? So that's where we are with that. And then it took 2 months for Google to introduce its experimental search, AI augmented search called Search Generative Experience, or SGE. And then out of the blue, Amazon, who was kind of off to the side, announces a $4 billion investment in a OpenAI DeepMind competitor called Anthropic. Have any of you guys ever heard of Anthropic? This was in September, so this was just last month. And basically, Amazon is now getting in the game, and you'll find out in a sec that Meta is also involved, and Apple is getting involved as well. So the big five in tech are all, it's like a melee. This is like Super Smash Brothers. Like, they're all going after each other. And I wanted to share with you that Apple has announced $1 billion a year investment in AI. $1 billion a year to make a smarter Siri, to integrate it into all of their tools. So it's coming soon. Apple has been a late player to this game. Like, Siri is terrible. And the reason Siri is terrible is because it's not built on a large language model like ChatGPT. So the only way it learns is it needs to be hard-coded. And as a result, it's terrible. Like, I can't even get it to search my contacts accurately. I say, like, hey, Siri, call Lula Folgosa. And they'll say something like, there is no Lula Folgosa in your contacts. And I'm like, yes, there is. And then I type in, see a Lee Filosa in your contacts. Yeah, it says, I don't see a Lee Filosa in your contacts. But I will go type Lula, and there she is. It's like, come on, man. And then you have ChatGPT on the other side that's like writing sonnets in the voice of Shakespeare. I mean, what the heck? So Apple knows it's got a problem here, and they're going to fix it eventually. But Apple's always a late player. They kind of watch, they stand back. The iPhone, the greatest product it was many years after very good smartphones. They just tend to do it better. So I'm excited about this one. There were other AI in the news. So Microsoft and Google both announced their earnings, and I'm sorry, there's like a block of text, but basically Microsoft blew up, huge increase in revenue, particularly from their cloud business. Profit rose 27%. And most of the excitement from the stock market is because of Azure AI, which is their AI-powered cloud service. At the same time, Alphabet
You got to mute then.
at the same time, thank you. At the same, did you hear everything I said about Microsoft, John?
Yeah, we just lost you for like
Okay, so
5 seconds.
yeah, it sometimes it kicks off for some reason. So Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, has beats earning expectations by $1 billion, and their stock tanks. And the reason their stock tanks is because their cloud business was weak, and their cloud business is where AI is really getting implemented. So Google is on its heels, and it's getting punished by the stock market, and there's a lot of risk on the horizon for these guys. So I wanted to give you a little bit of context on who are the the giant players behind these tools. We're going to be focusing the beginning of this course on ChatGPT, which is the Microsoft / OpenAI tool. But I do want you to understand that there are competitive tools out there, built by Google, built by Anthropic, Claude. There are lots of ones out there. And we welcome you to try those out, but we're going to stay pretty focused on the one that you're paying for.